The viewing deck of Meridian Station offered a spectacular panorama of the Andromeda Trade Corridor, where ships from a dozen different species moved like luminescent fish through the cosmic reef. Jasper Kane pressed his palm against the cool transparisteel, watching a massive, void-born vessel glide past with the fluid grace that had made their race legendary among spacefaring civilizations. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an effect that was both beautiful and unsettling. Having second thoughts? Captain Reeves asked, joining him at the observation window. The grizzled spacer's weathered face showed genuine concern as he studied his longtime friend and business partner. Jasper adjusted the collar of his formal black jacket, a concession to diplomatic protocol that felt foreign after years of casual merchant attire. About the most important trade negotiation of my career? Never. This isn't a trade negotiation, Jas, and we both know it. Reeves lowered his voice, glancing around the bustling station corridor. You're talking about marrying someone you've never seen, from a species that's barely interacted with humanity for the past century. The Voidborn keep their women veiled for reasons we don't understand, and their biology, double quotes, he trailed off, shaking his head, is compatible enough for this arrangement to be proposed in the first place, Jasper finished. He turned from the window, his green eyes bright with the same excitement that had driven him from a small colony world to become one of humanity's most successful independent traders. Reeves, think about what this means. Exclusive access to void-born trade routes, technologies we've only dreamed of, resources that could transform human space. He paused, his expression softening slightly. Besides, maybe it's time I settled down, Reeves snorted. Settled down? You've never stayed on one planet longer than a month. And now you want to marry an alien princess you've never seen? The soft chime of an approach signal interrupted their conversation. Through the transparisteel, they watched as an elegant void-born shuttle docked with the station, its hull rippling with patterns that seemed to shift like liquid shadow. That would be my bride arriving, Jasper said, straightening his jacket one final time. Wish me luck. You're going to need more than luck, Reeves muttered, but he clasped Jasper's shoulder with genuine warmth. Just be careful, my friend. Some gambles cost more than credits. The diplomatic reception chamber had been arranged to accommodate both human and void-born customs, creating a space that felt like a fusion of ancient Earth formality and alien mystique. Jasper stood at one end of the polished obsidian table, flanked by the handful of human dignitaries who had witnessed his decision to volunteer for this unprecedented arrangement. Across from them, the void-born delegation moved with the fluid grace their species was known for, their formal robes seeming to drink in the ambient light. Ambassador Thorne, the void-born diplomat who had spent months negotiating this arrangement, stepped forward. Unlike the others, he wore more practical attire, though his pale skin still held the faint luminescence that marked his species. Merchant Kane, he began, his accent lending exotic music to standard galactic. Are you prepared to proceed with the bonding ceremony? I am, Jasper replied, fighting down the nervous energy that had nothing to do with business dealings and everything to do with the veiled figure standing silently at the center of the Voidborn group. Princess Nyx stood perfectly still, her form draped in layers of midnight blue fabric that seemed to move independently of any breeze. The ceremonial veil covered her entirely, from the crown of her head to her shoulders, made from some material that appeared solid from one angle and translucent from another. It was impossible to discern even the basic shape of the person beneath. The princess understands the terms of this union, Thorne continued. A marriage of political and economic alliance designed to forge new bonds between our peoples. She has consented to this arrangement, Jasper nodded, though something in Thorne's carefully neutral tone suggested there was more to the story. Has she been told about me? About humans in general? For the first time, the veiled figure moved slightly, what might have been a nod. When she spoke, Her voice was melodious, but muffled by the layers of fabric. "I have studied your species extensively, Merchant Kane. Your reputation for ... adaptability precedes you." There was something in her tone, a hint of amusement perhaps, that made Jasper smile despite the formal circumstances. "Adaptability is a useful trait in my line of work, Your Highness. I hope it serves me well in marriage." A soft sound that might have been laughter came from beneath the veil. "We shall discover that together." The ceremony itself was remarkably brief, a fusion of human and void-born traditions that emphasized the political rather than romantic nature of the union. Jasper spoke the words of commitment in both languages, his natural facility with tongues serving him well. When it came time for the exchange of binding tokens, he noticed that his bride's hands were steady, though they were covered by gloves that matched her veil. "The ceremonial unveiling," Thorne announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, "will take place in private quarters. As is traditional." Jasper felt a mixture of anticipation and apprehension as they were escorted to the diplomatic suite that had been prepared for them. The rooms were elegantly appointed, with furniture that seemed to blend human comfort with void-born aesthetics. Large viewports offered stunning views of the surrounding nebula, its violet and gold wisps providing a romantic backdrop that seemed almost too perfect to be coincidental. "Well?" Jasper said once they were alone, turning to face his new wife. "This is certainly not how I imagined my wedding day." Princess Nyx moved to stand before one of the viewports, her silhouette framed by cosmic light. "How did you imagine it?" The question caught him off guard. In truth, he had never really imagined a wedding day at all. His life had been consumed by trade routes and profit margins, by the thrill of negotiating deals across the galaxy. Marriage had seemed like a distant possibility, something for other people who were content to stay in one place. "I suppose I never really did," he admitted. "I've always been too busy exploring what's out there to think about settling down. And yet you volunteered for this arrangement." She turned toward him, the movement causing her veils to shimmer in the nebula's light. "Why?" Jasper considered the question seriously. The official reason was clear enough: the trade opportunities, the potential for human expansion into void-born territory, the diplomatic implications. But standing here, alone with this mysterious woman who was now his wife, he found himself searching for a more honest answer. "Curiosity," he said finally. "The same thing that made me leave my home colony when I was barely old enough to pilot a shuttle. The same thing that drives me to seek out new trading partners and explore unknown systems." He took a step closer. "You're the ultimate unknown, Princess. A mystery I can't solve with market analysis or cultural databases. Most humans fear the unknown," she observed. "Our research suggests your species prefers familiar patterns, predictable outcomes. Maybe most humans," Jasper agreed. "But I've never been most humans. I've built my entire life on embracing the unpredictable." He gestured toward the veils that concealed her. "May I?" For a long moment, she didn't respond. Then, slowly, she raised her hands to the edge of her veil. "Are you certain, Merchant Kane? Once seen, some things cannot be unseen." "I'm certain," he said, though his heart was racing with a mixture of excitement and apprehension that rivaled his first solo flight into deep space. The fabric fell away like shadow dissolving in starlight, and Jasper felt his breath catch in his throat. The woman before him was beautiful, but not in any way he had expected. Her skin held a faint luminescence, like moonlight on water, and seemed to shift subtly in the cosmic light streaming through the viewport. Her hair was the deep blue-black of space itself, and her eyes her eyes were like looking into twin galaxies, swirling with depths that seemed infinite. They were studying him with an intelligence that was clearly alien, yet somehow familiar. "You're not what I expected either," she said softly, and now her voice was clear and musical, without the muffling of the veil. "Most species that have encountered us find our appearance disturbing, Jasper." found his voice after a moment of stunned silence. Disturbing? He shook his head in wonder. Princess, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I've witnessed supernovas birth new stars. A smile played across her lips, transforming her alien features into something warmer, more approachable. You truly are different from what our research predicted. Good different or bad different? He asked, taking another step closer. I haven't decided yet, she replied, but her smile suggested she was leaning toward the former dot as the artificial night cycle of the station settled around them. Jasper found himself talking with his new wife in a way he had never talked with anyone. She was intelligent, curious about human culture and psychology, and possessed of a dry wit that matched his own. In return, she shared carefully chosen details about void-born society, their complex relationship with light and shadow, their reverence for the spaces between stars. Your people call you void-born, he observed as they sat together on the curved couch that faced the main viewport. But you're not really from the void, are you? Nix's galactic eyes sparkled with approval. Very perceptive. We are born in the spaces between things, between stars, between dimensions, between thoughts. We exist in the margins of reality. That sounds lonely. It can be, she admitted. Perhaps that is why this arrangement appeals to me more than it should. Humans live so fully in your reality. Embrace existence with such double quotes. She searched for the word. Vigor. It's fascinating. Jasper studied her profile as she gazed out at the nebula. What made you agree to this marriage? And please don't tell me it was purely political duty. She was quiet for so long that he thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. The same thing that drove you to volunteer, I think. Curiosity. She turned to meet his eyes. And perhaps a desire to discover what it would be like to exist fully in someone else's reality. As the station's artificial dawn began to lighten the nebula beyond their viewport, Jasper realized that his gamble had already paid dividends he hadn't expected. He had gained more than trade routes and political alliance. He had found someone who understood the hunger for the unknown that had driven his entire life. What happens now? He asked. Princess Nix smiled, her luminescent skin seeming to brighten slightly. Now, my dear husband, we discover what lies beyond the next horizon, outside their viewport. The first ships of the morning cycle began moving through the trade corridors, carrying goods and dreams to distant worlds. But for the first time in his adult life, Jasper Kane was in no hurry to join them. The greatest adventure of his life was just beginning, and it was sitting right beside him. The merchant had made his gamble and won a prize beyond his wildest calculations. Now the real journey could begin. The ceremonial chamber aboard the void-born vessel Star Whisper was unlike anything Jasper had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of crystallized shadow, surfaces that absorbed and reflected light in patterns that shifted with each breath. Bioluminescent filaments traced intricate designs across the ceiling, pulsing gently like a slow heartbeat. At the center of it all stood an altar carved from what appeared to be solidified starlight, its surface rippling with imprisoned constellations. Minister Kale, the ancient void-born religious leader, moved around the altar with ceremonial precision. His robes were even more elaborate than those Jasper had seen at the initial meeting, seeming to contain actual fragments of space within their folds. When he spoke, his voice resonated with harmonics that made the chamber itself seem to hum in response. The ritual of true bonding, he intoned, requires absolute honesty between the participants. All veils must be lifted, all masks removed, all barriers dissolved. His luminous eyes fixed on Jasper. Are you prepared to see your bride as she truly is human? Jasper stood at one side of the altar, acutely aware of the dozens of void-born witnesses arranged in concentric circles around the chamber. Their collective presence felt like being observed by living shadows. I am, he said, his voice carrying clearly in the crystalline space that Zara Chun, the human cultural attach who had insisted on witnessing the ceremony, shifted nervously beside him. She had spent the journey from Meridian Station, briefing Jasper on every scrap of information humanity possessed about void-born bonding rituals, which wasn't much. Remember, she whispered, their concept of beauty may be completely different from ours. Try not to react visibly if... I'll be fine, Zara, Jasper murmured back, though his heart was racing. The private unveiling in their quarters had been one thing, but this was different. This was ritual, ceremony, the point of no return for both their species. Minister Kale raised his hands, and the chamber fell into complete silence. Princess Nyx of the Deep Void, daughter of shadows, keeper of ancient light, come forward and present yourself to your chosen bondmate. The circle of witnesses parted like a living curtain, and Princess Nyx glided forward. But this wasn't the same figure from their wedding ceremony. Where before she had been draped in ceremonial veils, now she wore garments that seemed to be woven from liquid starlight itself. The fabric clung to her form, revealing the elegant alien curves of her body while somehow remaining modest. Her face was still concealed, but by a mask that appeared to be carved from crystallized void stuff, its surface showing the slow rotation of distant galaxies. The mask, Minister Kale continued, has been worn by Nyx since her coming of age, as is traditional for all royal daughters. No one outside her immediate family has seen her true face. The ancient Voidborn turned to Jasper. Your species bonds through sight, through touch, through the sharing of physical space. Ours bonds through the sharing of essence, of fundamental truth. Are you prepared to witness that truth? Jasper found his mouth had gone dry. Around the chamber, he could feel the weight of alien expectations, the careful balance of diplomatic relations resting on his shoulders. But when he looked at Nyx, standing poised and still at the altar's edge, he felt the same curiosity that had driven him across the galaxy. Show me, he said simply. Nyx's hands rose to the mask, her movements deliberate and graceful. The crystalline surface began to dissolve, flowing like water, until it pooled at her feet and evaporated into wisps of silver mist. What lay beneath took Jasper's breath away. Completely her face was a work of living art that defied human categorization. Her skin held the same luminescence he had glimpsed in their private quarters, but here, in the ceremonial chamber surrounded by her own people, it blazed with patterns that shifted like aurora across her features. Her bone structure was delicate yet alien, with subtle angles that suggested a beauty evolved under different stars. But it was her eyes that captured him completely. Those galactic depths now swirled with colors that had no names, nebulae of emotion that seemed to reflect his own wonder back at him. Most striking of all were the markings that traced across her, temples and cheekbones, intricate patterns that pulsed with soft light, like living tattoos made of captured starlight. They shifted and flowed as he watched, responding to some internal rhythm that matched the quickening of his pulse. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, but not from the void-born witnesses. The sound had come from Zara, and when Jasper glanced at her, he saw wonder and something like fear warring in her expression. She single quotes S. double quotes Zara whispered. She's beautiful. But the patterns on her skin, they're moving, they're alive, Minister Kale finished, his ancient voice carrying a note of surprise. The sacred markings have awakened. In all my centuries, I have witnessed this only 3 times before. He studied Nyx with new interest. The princess bears the mark of the starborn. She is not merely royal by birth, but by cosmic selection. Jasper hardly heard the explanation. He was lost in Nyx's eyes, seeing in their depths the same mixture of vulnerability and determination he had glimpsed during their private conversations. "You're magnificent," he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The luminescent patterns on her skin flared brighter, And for the first time since entering the chamber, she smiled. "You're not running away screaming." "I consider that a promising start." "Running away?" Jasper stepped closer to the altar, drawn by some invisible force. "Princess, I've spent my life chasing wonders across the galaxy. You don't run from something like this. You embrace it." Minister Kale began chanting in the ancient void-born tongue, his words creating harmonics that made the crystalline walls sing in response. The altar between them began to glow, its imprisoned starlight swirling faster, as if responding to some cosmic catalyst. "The bonding requires physical contact," the minister explained, switching back to galactic standard. "Your hands must touch while the sacred light bears witness to your union." Nyx extended her hand across the glowing altar, and Jasper reached out to meet her. The moment their skin made contact, the chamber erupted in brilliance. The starlight trapped within the altar burst free, surrounding them in a whirlwind of cosmic fire that somehow felt warm and welcoming rather than destructive. Their joined hands. Jasper felt something unprecedented, a connection that went beyond the physical, beyond even the emotional. It was as if their very essences were touching, recognizing each other across the vast differences of species and evolution. The sensation was overwhelming, intimate in ways he had no words to describe. The patterns on Nyx's skin flared in response, and he felt her gasp through the connection. Her galactic eyes were wide with wonder and something that might have been joy. "The bond is accepted," Minister Kale announced, his voice filled with awe. "The cosmos has witnessed and approved this union. You are now truly married, not just by law and custom, but by the fundamental forces that govern existence itself." The starlight gradually faded, leaving them still touching across the altar, both breathing hard from the intensity of the experience. Around them, the void-born witnesses were making soft, musical sounds that Jasper realized must be their equivalent of celebratory cheering. "How do you feel?" Nyx asked softly, her pattern still pulsing with gentle light. Jasper considered the question. How did he feel? Changed, certainly. Connected to her in ways he was only beginning to understand. But underneath it all was a sense of rightness, as if puzzle pieces he hadn't known were scattered had suddenly clicked into place. "Complete," he said finally. "Like I've been looking for something my whole life without knowing what it was." Her smile transformed her alien features, making them somehow more human and more beautifully alien at the same time. "I know exactly what you mean." The ceremonial portion concluded, but the celebration that followed was unlike any diplomatic reception Jasper had ever attended. The Voidborn, he discovered, became remarkably animated once formal protocols were satisfied. Their bioluminescent patterns created a light show that put any human fireworks display to shame. And their music was something felt as much as heard, vibrations that resonated in his bones and made his heart race. Nyx remained at his side throughout, her hand in his, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. He found himself able to sense her emotions, her genuine happiness, her lingering nervousness about the future, her growing affection for him. "Can you feel what I'm feeling too?" he asked during a brief lull in the festivities. She nodded, her patterns flickering with what he was learning to recognize as amusement, curiosity, wonder, and a rather flattering level of attraction. Also hunger. "When was the last time you ate?" Jasper laughed, realizing she was right. "This morning, I think." "Time loses meaning around you. Come," she said, leading him toward what appeared to be a buffet table, though the foods were unlike anything in human space. "Try this. It's similar to what you call fruit, but it grows in zero gravity and absorbs cosmic radiation for flavor." As they sampled alien delicacies and mingled with beings who had been complete mysteries to humanity just days before, Jasper found himself marveling at how natural it all felt. The bond created by the ceremony seemed to be translating more than just emotions. He was beginning to understand. void-born social cues, their humor, even some of their more complex cultural concepts. The sacred markings, he said, watching the patterns dance across Nyx's skin. What do they mean exactly? Her expression grew serious. They mark me as what your people might call a bridge, someone capable of connecting different forms of existence. The patterns respond to cosmic forces, to emotional resonance, to the presence of compatible life. She looked down at their joined hands. They've never responded to anyone the way they're responding to you. Is that good or bad? I don't know, she admitted. But it's unprecedented. Minister Kale was right. This has only happened a few times in recorded history, and each time it preceded major changes in our civilization. Before Jasper could ask what kind of changes, Zara appeared at his elbow, her expression troubled. Jasper, we need to talk. Privately. He looked between his new wife and his colleague, noting the tension in Zara's posture. Through his bond with Nyx, he felt her sudden spike of concern. What's wrong? Nyx asked. Zara glanced around the celebration, noting the numerous voidborn within earshot. Perhaps we should discuss this in your quarters. The three of them made their excuses and slipped away from the festivities, making their way through corridors that seemed to shift and flow around them. Jasper was getting used to the way voidborn architecture played with perception, but he noticed Zara looking increasingly uncomfortable. Once they were safely in the private quarters that had been prepared for the newlyweds, rooms that were somehow both luxurious and alien, Zara activated a privacy field and turned to face them. I've been monitoring communications between the human delegation and Earth, she began without preamble. There are factions within both governments that are not pleased with how successfully this union is proceeding. What do you mean? Jasper asked, though a cold feeling was settling in his stomach. I mean, there are people who wanted this arrangement to fail, Zara said bluntly. Politicians who saw it as a useful way to demonstrate that human-alien integration is impossible, and were better off maintaining separation. She looked directly at Nyx, and apparently there are similar factions within void-born society. Nyx's patterns shifted to deeper, more ominous colors. The purists, she said quietly. They believe contact with other species dilutes our essential nature. The problem, Zara continued, is that your bonding ceremony was broadcast to both civilizations. Everyone saw how successful the connection was, how genuine your reactions were to each other. That's making certain people very nervous. Jasper felt a surge of anger through his bond with Nyx, though he wasn't sure if it was his emotion or hers. So what are they planning to do about it? Zara's expression grew grim. I don't know yet, but I've detected coded transmissions, unusual flight patterns among some of the escort vessels, and several key figures have gone mysteriously silent. She met their eyes. I think someone is planning to ensure this marriage doesn't reach its intended destination. Outside their viewport, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, beautiful and distant. But for the first time since this adventure began, Jasper found himself wondering if he and Nyx would live long enough to discover what their unprecedented bond might mean for both their peoples. The ceremony was complete, the connection forged, but their greatest challenges were just beginning. The private chambers aboard the Star Whisper had been designed to accommodate both human and void-born physiology, creating a space that felt like stepping into a dream. Walls of living crystal responded to emotion, shifting from deep purple to warm gold as Jasper's mood changed. The bed itself appeared to be woven from solidified moonbeams, soft as silk but supportive in ways that defied physics. Nyx stood at the curved viewport, her silhouette framed by the swirling nebula they were passing through. The patterns on her skin pulsed gently in rhythm with the cosmic light outside, creating a harmony that was both beautiful and hypnotic. Through their bond, Jasper could feel her mixture of contentment and nervous anticipation. The view is incredible, he said, moving to stand beside her. But not as incredible as you, she turned to him. with that smile that transformed her alien features into something warm and approachable. "Your thoughts are very loud, husband. I can feel your appreciation quite clearly." Jasper felt heat rise in his cheeks. The psychic connection was still new, still surprising him with its intensity. "Sorry, I'm not used to having someone able to sense my emotions directly." "Is it overwhelming?" "Not overwhelming," Nyx replied, her hand finding his. "Fascinating. Human emotions are so vivid, like primary colors painted with bold strokes. We void-born tend towards subtlety, nuance." Her patterns shifted to deeper hues. "But I find I prefer your directness." Through their connection, he could sense what she meant. Her emotions felt like layers of watercolor, complex and shifting, while his own seemed to burn with clear, bright fire. The contrast was intriguing rather than jarring. "Show me," he said softly. "Show me how void-born express affection." Nyx's eyes widened slightly, her patterns flaring brighter. "That's quite bold of you to ask. Is it inappropriate?" "No," she said quickly. "Just unexpected. Most arranged marriages begin with political necessity and develop emotional connection slowly. If at all." She moved closer, her hand coming up to trace the line of his jaw. "But then, most arranged marriages don't involve a psychic bond." Her touch sent cascades of sensation through their connection. Not just the physical feeling of her fingers on his skin, but the emotional resonance beneath it. He could feel her growing desire, her curiosity about human intimacy, her wonder at the strength of their bond. "Among my people," she said softly, "courtship involves the sharing of light." As she spoke, the patterns on her skin began to pulse more brightly, creating intricate mandalas that flowed from her temples down her neck and arms. "We communicate through bioluminescence as much as through words." "What are you saying to me now?" Jasper asked, mesmerized by the dancing lights. Her smile turned mischievous. "I'm saying that I find you remarkably attractive for an alien, and that our bond has awakened desires I didn't know I possessed." The honesty in her words, amplified by their psychic connection, hit him like a physical force. His own desire flared in response, and he watched in fascination as her patterns responded to his emotional state, brightening and shifting to deeper, more intense colors. "The bond works both ways," she observed, her voice growing husky. "I can feel what you're feeling, want what you're wanting. It's intoxicating." Jasper cupped her face in his hands, marveling at how her luminescent skin felt warm and soft despite its alien glow. "Is this what you want, Nyx? Not the political alliance, not the diplomatic necessity, but this, U.S.?" Through their bond, he felt her answer before she spoke it, a surge of certainty, desire, and something deeper that might have been love. "Yes," she whispered. "More than I've ever wanted anything." Their first kiss was electric, literally and figuratively. The moment their lips met, Nyx's bioluminescence flared like a captured star, and Jasper felt their psychic connection deepen into something that transcended the physical. He could feel her wonder at the texture of his lips, her fascination with the warmth of human skin, her growing passion that fed back into his own until he wasn't sure where his feelings ended and hers began. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, her entire body was glowing with soft, pulsing light. "That was ... she began. "Unprecedented," he finished, then laughed at his choice of words. "I'm beginning to understand why this arrangement has both our species so concerned. Because it's working too well?" she asked, her patterns shifting to what he was learning indicated humor. "Because it's changing us both," he replied, running his fingers through her star-dark hair. "I can feel it, Nyx. This bond isn't just allowing us to sense each other's emotions. It's making us more than we were, separately." She nodded, her expression growing serious. "The sacred texts speak of true bondings that create hybrid souls, connections so deep that the participants become something new, something that transcends their original species." Her galactic eyes met his. I think that's what's happening to us, double quotes. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, Jasper found it exhilarating. He had spent his life seeking new experiences, new possibilities. This was the ultimate frontier, not just exploring space, but exploring the very nature of consciousness and connection. Are you afraid? He asked. Terrified, she admitted, her patterns flickering with what he now recognized as vulnerability. But also more alive than I've ever been. You make me want to experience everything, to feel as intensely as humans do, to burn as brightly as your emotions. Her words kindled something deep within him, a protective instinct that was purely human mixed with something else, something new that their bond had created. He pulled her closer, reveling in how perfectly she fit against him, despite their physiological differences. Then let's burn together, he said, and kissed her again. This time, their connection exploded into something beyond the physical. Through their bond, Jasper experienced sensations no human had ever felt. The way cosmic radiation felt like music against her skin, how she perceived light as texture, the indescribable sensation of existing partially outside normal spacetime. In return, he shared with her the simple, powerful joy of human emotion, the way laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep within, how physical pleasure could be both intense and playful, the warm security of being held. They moved together toward the bed, hands exploring, minds and hearts opening to each other in ways that would have been impossible without their unique connection. Nyx's bioluminescence responded to every touch, every sensation, creating patterns of light that told the story of their union in ways that transcended language. You're beautiful, Jasper murmured against her throat, feeling her pulse quicken under his lips. Absolutely radiant. I can feel how much you mean that, she replied, her voice wondering. Through our bond, I can sense that you truly find me beautiful, not despite my alien nature, but because of it. Your alien nature is what makes you magnificent, he said, helping her out of her ceremonial garments. The fabric seemed to dissolve at his touch, revealing the full glory of her luminescent form. Her skin was like living art, patterns flowing across her body in response to their growing passion. When she began to remove his clothing, her movements were curious, exploratory. Human skin is so different, she observed, her fingers tracing the muscles of his chest. Solid, warm, stable. It doesn't shift or glow, but it has its own beauty. We're quite different species, Jasper agreed, then smiled. But somehow we fit together perfectly. Their lovemaking was a fusion of human passion and void-born mysticism, physical pleasure amplified by psychic connection until neither was sure where sensation ended and emotion began. Nyx's bioluminescence created a light show that painted the chamber in ever-shifting colors, while their bond allowed them to experience pleasure from both perspectives simultaneously. When they finally collapsed together, exhausted and glowing, Nyx literally, Jasper metaphorically, the chamber around them had transformed. The living crystal walls now pulsed gently with patterns that matched Nyx's skin, as if their union had somehow impressed itself upon the ship itself. Did we just double quotes Jasper began? Imprint our bond on the ship's consciousness? Nyx finished, her head on his chest, patterns slowly fading to a contented glow. It appears so. Void-born vessels are semi-sentient. Strong emotions can influence their behavior. Jasper laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Leave it to us to accidentally redecorate through the power of cosmic love. Her musical laughter joined his. I don't think any marriage in recorded history has begun quite like this. Good, he said, stroking her hair. I prefer being unique. They lay together in comfortable silence, their bond humming with contentment and deep affection. Outside their viewport, the nebula continued its ancient dance, but Jasper found himself more interested in the woman in his arms than in any cosmic wonder. NYX, he said softly. I think I'm falling in love with you. Through their connection, He felt her heart skip. Her patterns flared briefly, then settled into warm, steady light. "I know I'm falling in love with you," she replied. "And given that we're psychically bonded, I can tell you that the feeling is entirely mutual. Is it supposed to happen this quickly?" She raised her head to look at him, her galactic eyes soft with emotion. "According to everything I know about psychology and interspecies relationships, no. According to what I feel through our bond, ... double quotes." She paused, seeming to search for words. "Time has no meaning when souls recognize each other." Before Jasper could respond, a gentle chime indicated an incoming communication. Nyx sighed and activated the room's communication array with a gesture. Matron Vera's voice filled the chamber, crisp with authority despite her age. "Princess, forgive the intrusion, but we have a situation that requires your attention." "What kind of situation?" Nyx asked, sitting up and allowing the bed's adaptive fabric to form a modest covering. "Long-range sensors have detected 3 vessels moving to intercept our course. Their identification signatures are ... concerning." Through their bond, Jasper felt Nyx's sudden spike of alarm. "Purist vessels?" 2 void-born ships of extremist design, and 1 human military cruiser that is not part of our authorized escort, Vera confirmed. "They appear to be acting in coordination." Jasper was already moving, reaching for his clothes. "How long until they reach us?" "Approximately 6 hours at current speeds." "Understood," Nyx said, her voice taking on the authority of royal command. "Begin evasive protocols and alert Captain Thane to prepare defensive measures." "Already in progress, Highness." "But Princess ... Vera's voice carried an odd note. "Yes?" "The ship's bio-neural network is ... singing. The patterns are unlike anything in our databases." Nyx looked at Jasper, her cheeks darkening with what he was learning to recognize as a void-born blush. "That would be a side effect of the bonding process, Matron." "Nothing to be concerned about." "Ah," Vera said, and Jasper could hear the smile in her voice. "Congratulations, then, both of you." After the communication ended, Jasper and Nyx dressed quickly, their moment of intimate peace shattered by the approaching threat. "So much for a peaceful honeymoon," Jasper said, checking his sidearm. "At least we'll face whatever comes together," Nyx replied, her battle garments materializing around her with practiced ease. The ceremonial robes were gone, replaced by form-fitting armor that seemed to be made of crystallized shadow. "Together," Jasper agreed, taking her hand. Through their bond, he felt her resolve strengthen, just as his own determination fed back to her as they prepared to leave their chambers and face whatever conspiracy awaited them. Jasper realized that their union had already accomplished something remarkable. They had found love in an arranged marriage, discovered compatibility across species boundaries, and forged a connection that transcended the physical. Now they would discover if that connection was strong enough to survive those who would see it. Destroyed. The honeymoon was over, but their real adventure was just beginning.